Welcome to What Are You Sporting About podcast, a podcast about business, employment, sports, and entertainment to help educate, support, and guide you to your next level. Here's your host, attorney Sivonnia DeBarros.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. Sivonnia DeBarros here, the protector of athletes, also the founder and principal attorney of the SL DeBarros Law Firm. I almost forgot my own law firm name. Where we represent athletes and business owners. Look, so I have a great guest here today, Ms. Shikha Tandon, and I want to tell you a little bit about her background before we really start digging in and talking about a lot of the amazing stuff that she's accomplished. So Shikha is currently the director of partnerships at Silicon Valley Exercise Analytics. A lot of people know them as SVEXA. And she also serves on the board of directors for a nonprofit organization, Bridges of Sports. She is an Olympian swimmer. She's represented India at the 2004 Athens Olympics Games. She is a Arjuna Awardee and has won 37 international medals for India, 146 national medals, and created 75 national records. She also holds a Master of Science in Biology, a Master of Science in Biotechnology, and a Bachelor of Science in Biotechnology, Genetics, and Biochemistry. In her professional career, she has combined her academic knowledge with athletic experiences to work as the science program lead at the United States Anti-Doping Agency, as well as various fitness, wearable, and technology companies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sivonnia. It's great to be here. I know we've gone back and forth the past few months, but really glad we could make this work.
Yes, me too. And I love all of the accomplishments that you've received in your academic journey as well as your athletic journey, because there's so much that you've been able to accomplish here. So I want to open up the questioning with my main point. What are you sporting about? What does that mean to you?
So I think, the last couple of years, because of the pandemic, we've all had to just take a step back and, think about our own personal journeys. And I think for me, that's where I am right now. So when you ask the question of what are you sporting about, I think that's what it is, your own personal journey. Because, even for me, I have two young girls, one 7 months old. So, the last 1 year has been, busy to say the least. And, just being... having to balance both my professional careers and personal life, especially in the last 2 years, has had me take a step back and just think about what my priorities are and what's important to me. And so I think what I'm sporting about right now is my own personal journey. And I think everyone's doing the same thing.
Love it. Love it. And sometimes it's hard to focus on our own journey. We work so hard trying to fit certain molds that have been placed out there for us. And one of the things I said to you before we went live was I love the fact that you've been able to do something completely different than what I'm used to seeing most former athletes do. And so I want to know, what was the inspiration? What was the initial thing that sparked this science in you? Is that something do you know a lot of people in your family who are in science or biotechnology? What is it? How did you even get into this field?
So a couple of things, growing up as an athlete in India and, just an athlete in general, you learn to think about your body, you learn to think about what works for you, and you just get into the nitty gritty of performance and understanding yourself. And so for me, that was really where the interest in biology and how, I as a person work and function. And also it helped that I had a fantastic teacher in high school who, really helped me get interested in the subject and then wanted to learn a bit more and apply that, initially as an athlete, but then, the subject just kind of grew on me. And that's really where the interest came from. And that's something I wanted to do. I knew that after I did end up end my sporting career, I knew that I didn't want to be a coach, but I knew I wanted to be involved, in sport in some capacity. And at the time, just given my options, being on the science side of things was the most, the one that made the most sense at that point.
And just so you know, I wore my Olympic shirt for you today.
Nice.
I was like, if I'm going to have an Olympian on the podcast, I got to wear my shirt for her. So that's awesome.
Someday I will fit into mine again.
Oh my gosh. So look, you have been able to take some lessons from sport and transition them into your fields. And I think for a lot of folks who don't have that science type of brain or science interest, they would probably say, how in the world were you able to implement things that you've learned in sport and then also take them into the office in a biotech, bioscience type of industry? So tell me how you were able to make that transition and what are some of the lessons that you've learned from sport that you've been able to now put into the office so that you can work, as your best self?
So just a bit of context, like growing up in India and competing when I did, which was, now at least 15, 20 years ago, sport as a career was really not an option. Because it was not something that people typically do. Our options are limited after you've been an elite athlete. And so a lot of times because of that, kids in India just drop off from competitive sport, when they're in high school. So academics is always something that you have to do parallel in India, especially. And so that was the focus for me. I knew I had to do both if I wanted to make a career after I stopped competitive swimming. So that was always at the back of my mind. I wanted something that I could leverage. I wanted something that I could, leap off of when I decided to quit competitive sport. And so that was initially the drive to do something that offered me, a broad range of opportunity post swimming. And so that was the reason I started it. But then, like I said, as I grew in my swimming career, as opportunities opened up to me from the professional standpoint, I was able to mix and match and understand, the different avenues and opportunities where I could apply what I had learned. And I landed up at the US Anti-Doping Agency after I graduated simply because, as an athlete, I had been through so many drug tests myself. And so I knew the Indian system and I knew just how much work had to be done, both from an athlete standpoint and from an agency standpoint. Because growing up, there was no concept of anti-doping education in India. So my first, anti-doping test was, I was 13 years old and I was taken to the bathroom and I said, hey, you need to pee in this cup. And I was like, wait, what's going on? And it was just alien to me at the time. And so it was such a huge learning process. And I think, I wanted to be part of that system where we're able to offer a level playing field to, every athlete that is willing to put in the hard work. So for me, just coming with that mindset as an athlete and also having that education helped me combine the two to start off working at the US Anti-Doping Agency. And then from that point on, even the healthcare industry, the industry to do with sciences and biosciences, especially with health and fitness and wellness, has just been growing the last 10, 15 years. So I think my opportunities, both from a professional standpoint and personal, have just been expanding. And I've been able to fortunately, ride that wave of growth within the industry and pick and choose what I want to do.
I love it. So I want to ask you something that might be a little more controversial around anti-doping in the Olympics, because this past Olympics, we saw like a lot of issues happening as it relates to female athletes. And I think there was also an issue regarding a disabled athlete who was prevented from bringing their parent to the games to assist them. So we know we got a global pandemic happening and everything, but the issue I want to bring to the forefront is around Brianna McNeil. And she was banned, I think it was 4 years from the Olympic Games, basically based on a missed drug test. But as records showed, she ended up having to have an abortion, which she didn't want to divulge that information, but missing the drug test, that was basically the sentence that they gave her. What would be your suggestion or any advice that you would have for female athletes and maybe even organizations to just make sure that there are protocols in place that support female athletes, especially in situations like that? I mean, you yourself are a mother. And so there's a completely different layer of life that we have to manage by being moms and then also a professional athlete. What advice would you give to a female athlete who may find themselves in a situation, maybe something similar to Brianna or a little different? And then what would be your advice for organizations in terms of policies to make sure that female athletes are not being mistreated in a way that, if we were in a regular employment context, would technically be a violation of their rights?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So I can't comment on, specific cases as such, but, overall, just being on the athlete side of things and, experiencing that through my competitive career, and then being on the agency side of things, I think the one advice I would have is, a lot of times we think about the anti-doping agencies as the bad guys, as the cops, but I think the best way to think about that and approach this is that they're there to help you. Like the sole point of that organization is to make sure that everyone has a level playing field. And so they are there for the athletes, and being on that side of things, I know that they're constantly thinking about the athletes. There's a huge, education department set up. There are different departments set up, keeping the athlete and coaches in mind, and the whole sporting ecosystem in mind. So, my advice would be, whenever there's a situation, be open about it, be open to talking about it, because when someone brings up a certain topic and initiates a conversation, then it helps the other person on the other side understand, and maybe there's a perspective that they haven't thought about, and then in the future they can use that perspective to potentially have policy changes or just think about the rules differently. But if we don't voice our opinion and be open about conversations, then maybe there's a lot that gets missed out, or even just gets misunderstood or misinterpreted. So I think the advice would be, keep that conversation going, keep an open conversation, and don't necessarily think about the anti-doping agency as someone who's out to get you, but use them as a resource to help you, and just help sport in general. Just keep it clean, and keep it fair for everyone involved.
Thank you so much for answering that. So something a little more fun to ask you. So with name, image, and likeness, and since you're on the state side, you probably have been seeing a lot of these conversations around college sports. And some of the questions that have been coming my way is, how are female athletes going to take advantage of this new law? And so my question for you is, for a female athlete who's in college or soon to transition to college, what would be some tips that you would give this athlete to go out into the world to possibly latch on to certain opportunities to monetize their name, image, and likeness? And any other advice around life that they should probably pay attention to as they move on into these different areas of their life?
So I think a couple of things. For me, what has worked is, just understanding who I am as a person and what I stand for. And I try and just, break them down into a couple of pillars that, this is something that embodies me as a person. And so when an opportunity comes along, and if it's aligned with something that I believe in and something that I stand for, it's a very, very easy for me to, say yes to that opportunity, and, be able to contribute in a meaningful manner to that opportunity. But if it's a time where I'm unsure about myself, or if then sometimes it makes it harder for the opportunity to work both ways. So I think for people coming in, especially college athletes, I think it would be great if they could step back, just think about what their interests are, what they want to stand for. And the minute you have clarity on that, it's almost like opportunities come your way, because then they see that it's a perfect fit. Because even companies and agencies want to be working with people who stand for what they stand for, and if it's a mutual, if it benefits both parties mutually, it's always a better working relationship. And in terms of just personally what I've experienced, in terms of taking opportunities, what's worked for me is going back to things that may not have worked the first time around. And in fact, that's really how I got into swimming. When I started off, I was very scared of the water. I wanted nothing to do with swimming as a sport. And a few years later, the opportunity came up again where I could go and be around the pool and learn how to swim. And the second time is when it clicked. And the second time is when I actually got into the sport and actually began to love it. So what I've done, and I always think about this, that a lot of times our circumstances and experiences play a role in how we approach certain things. So maybe something wasn't right at the time, but I don't necessarily just discard it. I try and somehow come back and say, okay, maybe my circumstance or experience has changed, and so maybe this is an opportunity now when it may not have been in the past. So I think just keeping that in mind for me has definitely helped.
That is awesome advice. And so I put in the comments, if you're watching this live, your fear made room for your gift. And I think it's so important for people to really latch on to what you just said, like come back to certain things. So I think sometimes we stay away from what feels uncomfortable or what created a certain rejection for us just because we don't like that feeling. But many of times it could be the fear that keeps us away from it. And so it's just another example of when I'm not going to even say remove the fear, but when we work in spite of the fear and through the fear, it will allow our gifts to shine through. And sometimes the fear will be the one thing that will turn and transition into the gift. And look at you. You are afraid, so I hate water.
Finding your passion, right? When we talk about finding your passion or what is it that drives you, we go through this checklist and say, okay, I've done that before. It didn't work. I didn't enjoy it. Just kind of push it aside and never visit it again. But you never know. Like in the future, maybe that is something that has grown. Maybe the industry has grown. Maybe you've grown. Your perspectives have changed. And now you maybe have something to offer, as far as that opportunity goes. So just, discarding something just because it didn't work in the past, maybe you're just leaving a door which could be open for you.
Yes, I love that. Leaving opportunities on the table. Oh my gosh, like great advice. And then you also said something around confidence. So sometimes it's hard for individuals to really know what is in alignment if you yourself don't know what you want. And I think sometimes we go out into the best example I can give is with networking. I used to be so afraid of networking because honestly, I don't even really know why. But sometimes that's a lack of confidence, right? So because if you don't know what it is that you're doing or what you really want to do, you can't properly communicate that to the person that you want to connect with. And so if you can't find the confidence in yourself to then step out and find these other opportunities that are in alignment, and like, as you said, sometimes it'll just come to you because now people have seen you work in your own confidence and in your own authenticity. Things will just start to click for you. And so I thought that was very important advice to our future athletes or future professional athletes. And so, guys, I want you to remember your fear will make room for your gift, but it's important for you to go back, as Shikha said, because sometimes your perspective, it will change and it will change over time as well. But don't be afraid and be too uncomfortable to revisit something that could lead to an amazing opportunity. Yeah. So, Shikha, my last question for you. You are a mom of two. You wear a lot of hats. You do a lot. How do you find the balance between work and being a mom?
That's a great question. Something that we're all learning every day, and it's evolving every day. But I think, the way I think about balance and work-life, for me, work-life balance is extremely important. And it has always been. So, I work hard, but I'm not the one who's going to be working 20 hours out of 24. That's not me. And, for me, finding that balance is important. And the way I do it is, there are some days where, my personal life and my kids, maybe have more going on. And so that needs a little more of my time and attention. And there are some days where, I could put in a few extra hours at work because that's what's needed at the time. So it's about prioritizing. And I don't think about my work and that balance in terms of days. I think about it, as a week or a month. Like in this week or in this month, this is what I want to accomplish. And these are the 5 things that, at the end of the week, if I'm able to do these 5 things, I deem it as a successful week. And I, put that up on my fridge because I know I'm going to be in the kitchen, either snacking or, providing snacks. So I know that I see that every single day and more times, in the day. So that just helps me remind myself about what's important and what's driving my week. So then when opportunities come up or things come up, and if it's not in alignment with those 4 or 5 things that I have set for myself, then it's very easy for me to say, you know what, not at this time, or maybe next week. And so it allows me to stay focused, and it helps just take out the little distractions that otherwise could get really overwhelming when you're thinking about trying to balance stuff.
So true. I just had to do that. I think I literally just turned down a potential phone call because I'm like, I literally just don't have the time. And so we have to make sure that we're not overwhelming ourselves with what we already have to balance. But like you said, make sure that we prioritize. So one thing I do on a daily basis, I don't put it on my fridge, but it's here in my office, is I'll write a list of the top things I know I need to accomplish. Right? And definitely is so as an attorney, there may be things that I can work on. There may be a file that I may have to work on maybe over the next 2 days, but it's on the list because I know I need to get this done by a certain period of time. So that is great advice, because now I need to take that also into my life as a mom and a professional and prioritize that as well. And I think sometimes that's the missing understanding of prioritization. Most people get it as I prioritize at work, but then I don't prioritize at home. So things kind of can get out of whack. So one way that I've been able to do that was prioritizing my health by meal prepping, because I don't have time to go and cook in the middle of the day. It's like, it's too much, it's too annoying, and it's too time consuming because I want to make sure I get certain things done. So,
and especially in the last couple of years where a lot of us have worked from home and are probably still working from home, where that personal and professional, it's all just happening in within the same 4 walls. And there have been times when when I say prioritize, I don't mean that I just need to accomplish these things from a work perspective. There are times when the number one thing on my list was as a priority was just sleep. Just sleep or shower. Make sure you shower every day this weekend. And anyone who's a new mom understands that, right? So it's not just about I need to send out this email or I need to close this project. Or, it doesn't even have to be, as crazy as that. It's just I need to focus on sleep and, my well-being and my health this month. And that's perfectly fine.
Oh my gosh, you are so right. And that's why I was laughing, because I'm like, yes, I remember when I was a new mom, everything was so out of whack. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and I'm so glad that you were able to come onto the podcast. I'm always trying to find individuals who are in the business or sports and entertainment space to shed some wisdom and light on other individuals, because the more we know, the more educated we are, the more we can go out into the world and really, further ourselves to finding and implementing the purpose that is really deep on the inside of us. So how can people connect with you to stay in touch and see all the things that you're working on?
I think LinkedIn or Instagram are probably your best bets. So it's just my name. So Shikha Tandon. You can find me on either one of those two.
Sounds good. And guys, listen, I have partnered with Miss Helen Williams, and we're going to get together and do a webinar for college coaches. If you are a college coach, I want you to join us on November 14th at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are going to help coaches understand how to navigate name, image, and likeness. So we want to tackle some learning objectives for you so that you can make sure that you can properly manage the team dynamics in your locker rooms for your student athletes who may be getting these deals. Make sure you go to athletesmakingmoves.com right now to register for this event, and it is free. Guys, make sure that you go to any podcast on any platform and a podcasting platform that you like and subscribe to this podcast, What Are You Sporting About, so you never miss an episode, and so that you can get this link to Shikha's episode when it is live. I am so happy again that you came on to speak with me. And until next time, guys, I'll check you later. Ciao. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this week on What Are You Sporting About podcast. Make sure to visit our website, prosportlawyer.com, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever your favorite platform is, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes or iHeartRadio. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like the show, you might want to check out our book, What Are You Sporting About? Attorney Sivonnia DeBarros is available for private consulting at sldebarros.com. And remember, we're here to educate, support, and guide you in your journey to success because we're all sporting about something.